Devasutam Devam Kansachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Hari Om. We must keep one thing in mind as we are going through this last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that chapter 18 is a summary of all the teachings of the Gita given in the last 17 chapters. So, Lord Krishna is summarizing everything in chapter 18. And the two most important things that he is summarizing, he already spoke about this in chapter 3, verse 3. And what was given in chapter 3, verse 3? That to attain salvation, the Lord has given two parts in this world. So there are two practices. They are not separate practices. They are one practice or sadhana leading to the next sadhana. And what are the two sadhanas? Karma yoga and jnana yoga. So which comes first? Karma yoga, then that leads to what? Purification of the mind. So by performing all actions as a dedication to the Lord, that is karma yoga, one purifies the mind. One removes all the impurities of ego, greed, anger, jealousy, etc. And then with that purified mind, or in that purified mind, arises a thirst for knowledge. And then one comes to jnana yoga. And what is jnana yoga? Jnana yoga is study of the scriptures, going through three practices, that is sravanam, listening, mananam, reflecting on the knowledge, and nididhyasanam, which means put that practice into, put that knowledge into action. Okay. So these two parts now, in the verses that we are going through, he is now also summarizing those. If we completed last week chapter 18, verse 49. So if we just go back a little bit to verse 46 in chapter 18. Verse 46, chapter 18. There he explains the path of karma yoga. In one nutshell, he explains the path of karma yoga. He says, by worshipping him through performance of his own duty. So just by doing our actions, by performing all our duties as a form of worship to Ishvara, he says man attains perfection. So that perfection is basically purity or purification of the mind. That is what it means. Okay. That means just by carrying out all the duties which we find ourselves with in the family or in the workplace or in the association or society, we discharge all our duties, but the mental attitude must be that every action, every duty is a offering to Isvara. So he says, by worshipping him through performance of your own duty, okay, man attains perfection. Now, what happens after that? Then we come to verse 49, which he explains the next stage now. So, once we attain that purity of mind, we say he comes to what? He comes to jnana yoga. So, when he comes to jnana yoga, he lists down three qualities a person must have. What is that? So, look at verse 49. The first quality is asakta buddhi. Buddhi, you all know, is the intellect. And the intellect is one that can be sharpened. How can the intellect be sharpened? How can you develop a strong intellect? By studying the scriptures. That is the most, what we call the most important way that you can strengthen the intellect, by gaining knowledge. What happens when you gain knowledge? What is the benefit when you gain knowledge? All your doubts are removed, all your ignorances are clear, isn't it? Right? That is what knowledge does. Whatever doubts you have can only be removed through knowledge. Whatever ignorance you have can only be removed through knowledge. So once your doubts are clear, your ignorance is clear, he says, asakta buddhi, sakta means detached. Asakta means, sakta means attached. Asakta means detached. So what do you mean by a detached buddhi? Meaning one has a healthy intellect and understands that you should not depend on the world for your happiness. Very careful. Huh? It does not mean that you should not indulge in the, it does not mean that you should not interact in the world, but you should not be dependent on the world for your happiness. That means if there is happiness, you enjoy it, but you don't crave for it, you don't long for it, you don't feel it is not there, you don't feel its absence. So the buddhi is sharp, the buddhi is clear, the buddhi understands that one should not depend on the world for happiness. I enjoy the world, but I seek happiness through happiness at a higher level. That is asakta buddhi, number one. Number two, he says, the next quality is, look at the Sanskrit text in the second line, Geeta Atma. So there are two words there. Jeet, which means conquering or having victory over what? Atma. Now, Atma has got many meanings, many different meanings in different contexts. In this context, this Atma means what? Mind, right? Because Atma here in this context means mind. So, Jeet Atma means one who has victory over the mind. Now, the mind is basically said to be very emotional. It is guided by likes and dislikes, raga, dvesha, whims and fancies. So we always tend to rush towards what we like to do, but what we like to do, is it right? Not necessary, right? So the mind has got to be really brought under control, not just necessarily running after what you like and running away from what you dislike, right? Likes, dislikes. Likes, we run to them. Dislikes, we run away from them. But giving charity, is it right or wrong? Right. But we dig into a pocket to find the most smallest coin we can find to give because it hurts us, it pains us, right? I'm just giving an example, okay? So, but once we understand the purpose of charity, it is good to give charity, then we start doing that. Doing seva, getting up early in the morning, going to some place, an orphanage or an old folks home to do seva, we find it very troublesome. But if we understand the benefit of seva, then we go towards that. So mind has got to be guided by what? By the intellect. That Krishna has said in chapter 3. The intellect is higher than the mind is higher than the senses. Senses should be guided by mind should be guided by intellect. So Jitatma, one who has conquered his mind and does not lead a life according to whims and fancies. Then the third quality is Vigata Spraha. Okay? Vigata Spraha means one who has attained a state of desireless state. That means there is no hankering for sensual and material enjoyments. The person has gone above that. Why has the person gone above this enjoyment of sensual and material enjoyments? Why does he not go and indulge in them? Why does he not go and indulge in them? Because he understands again through the intellect that all these are but temporary, right? So now, having gone through the path of knowledge, one comes to understand the temporary nature of the world and one seeks the permanent. Now, what happens when you start understanding that higher knowledge, that you are not this body, that is coming to the most highest knowledge that we can come to. Once we go through this Jnana Yoga study of the scriptures, they are telling us one very important thing. You are not this temporary material body, you are the immortal soul. Now, once you accept that, Then you come to the next stage. What is the next stage? Now here he uses a very interesting terminology. You can see that in the third line of the Sanskrit text. Nice karmyam siddhim. Nice karmyam siddhim. Okay? Nice karmya, we must understand this very, very carefully, because before we proceed on. Nice karmya means state of actionlessness. Okay? Nice karmya means state of actionlessness. So immediately when we read this, what comes to our mind? Go and sleep. Don't do anything. So we must understand this term very carefully. And siddhim. Siddhi means state of perfection. So normally those people who attain the state of perfection, they are called siddhas. You must have heard the word siddhas. And siddhas, there are many types of siddhas. Those who have attained a state of perfection, and there are those who can do what you call them, mystical things. You know, they can what you call float in the air, or they can read your mind, or things like that. Okay, but here we are not talking about those kind of supernatural, extraordinary actions. State of perfection of actionlessness means what? To attain this state, he says, adi gacchati. You will attain, once you go through the knowledge of the scriptures and understand that you are the Atman and not this body, you will then attain a state of actionlessness. Meaning what? Meaning you now don't become the doer, you become the observer. Not that you don't do actions, but now your focus changes from saying I am the doer to I am the observer. I am the witness to all my actions. That is the state of actionlessness that you will attain. You look at every action from the standpoint of Atma. So you will come ultimately to that state of nice karmyam siddhi. So that is, so now you've understood now the state by state that you're going, right? Karma yoga, purification of mind, jnana yoga, live in the knowledge, come to the state of actionlessness. Now you're operating from the state of Atma and no more the body. Okay, so you're now at the higher level. Now, what happens after this? What happens when you've reached the state of actionlessness? Okay, so very, very carefully, it does not mean not performing your duties. It means performing your duties from the standpoint that I am the Atma. Because had Krishna wanted to say that actionlessness means running away from your duties, he would not have wasted time then talking to Arjuna. Because what did Arjuna want to do? He wanted to run away from the battle and he wanted to take sannyasa. So he said, no, you don't do that. Krishna said, so obviously actionlessness cannot mean running away, but performing your duties and looking at your actions from a higher standpoint. Okay. So here he says, when you reach that state of actionlessness, he calls it paramam, is the most supreme sannyasena. That is the most highest state of renunciation. So now the beauty here is that renunciation is not giving up your duties. It is a state of the mind. Whether you're in an ashram, whether you're sitting in the cave, whether you're in the household, whether you're in the business, whatever it is, the state of the mind is very important. That he says is the highest paramam sannyasena, the highest state of renunciation you can attain. And how? By these three methods: asakta buddhi, jitatma, vigataspraha, the three qualities that is given there. You can attain that state. Okay. So now, what is the next stage after that? Okay. So the next stage he describes now in the next verse, that is verse 50. What happens after this now? That you have attained the state now. So now we look at the verse number 50. He says, Siddhim prapta. Prapta means once you attain the state of siddhim, the state of perfection, the state of actionlessness, what happens next? Now you have attained the state of actionlessness. Now the question is, what is next? So he says, Siddhim prapta, having attained that state of actionlessness, that state of perfection, apnoti Brahma, you attain Brahma. You attain Brahma. So now when you hear this, you say attain Brahma, what comes to your mind now?
Moksha.
Is it moksha? What type? Actually, it is moksha, but what type of moksha? Are you still alive? So what type of moksha is this called? And this attaining Brahman, maybe people start thinking Brahman is sitting somewhere else. I have to journey and go and reach Brahman. So we might think that this after death, I will go and sit with Brahman. But this is while you are alive. So where is this Brahman? Yeah, but where is he? He's within us, isn't it? That Atma, that consciousness is that Brahma, which is the supreme consciousness. See, simple way to understand this, if there is space inside a bottle and the space outside the bottle, what is the difference?
No,
Is there any difference?
no,
No difference. So Atma inside the body and the all-pervading consciousness, which we call Brahma, is one and the same. So attaining Brahma is not a journey that we have to go through, but it is dropping the ignorance that I am this body. Once I accept that I am Atma, Aham Atma Asmi, it means that I am one with Brahma. So it is my ignorance that is keeping me away from my identification with Brahma. So he says, such a person, when he attains the state of perfection, he then will attain Brahma also. That means he will become one with Brahma. Now this state, while living, is called Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta, which was also explained by Krishna in chapter 2, the last 18 verses of chapter 2, where Krishna spoke about a being called Sthita Prajna. So Sthita means steady, Prajna means wisdom. So any human being who is endowed with this steady wisdom and applies the wisdom in his or her life qualifies to be called a Jivan Mukta, which means whatever circumstances which are happening externally do not at all affect you. All the ups and downs of life, but your mind remains steady, remains constant, always fixed on the higher. Okay? So you attain Brahma means you attain that state of consciousness, a higher state of consciousness. Now the Lord says, Nibodha. Now, Nibodha me, he says, understand from me, I'm going to summarize. He says, I'm going to explain or summarize to you, Samasena Eva, in brief. I'm going to explain to you in brief. Why brief? Huh? It's already mentioned 17 chapters. So if you have not understood it, now the last chapter is just saying I'm summarizing it for you. Okay? After whole dialogue now, gone through already, you still cannot understand, then what to do? Better luck, next birth. Come back again, start again. So now he's saying, I'm going to give you in brief. What am I going to give you in brief? Nishta. So the word Nishta here means what is going to be the culmination of what? Jnanasya, of the path of Jnana Yoga. So when you come to Jnana Yoga, when you attain this knowledge and you say, Aham Atma Asmi, you claim I am the Atman, I'm not this body, what is the culmination? I'm going to explain to you how you're going to reach that state of Brahman. How are you going to merge with that Brahman? So this is what he's going to explain to us. So now, again, as I say, it's going to be summarized in the next 4 verses, 51, 52, 53, 54, the fundamental teachings of the final journey. That means how are we going to attain Brahman, that final journey now? That is what Krishna is going to explain to us. So there are 3 places in the Gita where this state of Jivan Mukta is explained very, very much in detail. The first time Krishna spoke about this was in chapter 2, as I mentioned earlier, verses 55 to 72. These 18 verses are very profound verses. They give us the qualities of a Sthita Prajna. So at least for us, it is like a checklist. Am I heading in that direction? If there is something I should be having, then I should cultivate those kind of qualities and attitude. So first time Krishna spoke about it by giving the qualities of a Sthita Prajna in verses 55 to 72 of chapter 2. The second time we spoke about it is again, but this time we call it Gunatit. So who is a Gunatit? Is also a Sthita Prajna, is the same. Gunatit means, you all know the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Gunatit means one who has transcended the 3 gunas. That person is also called a Sthita Prajna. He is also called a Gunatit. Is one and the same. And the qualities of this Gunatit were again explained in chapter 14, verse 22 to 25. So you can see the qualities are quite similar to a Sthita Prajna in chapter 2. And again, one more time, he reinforced the qualities of the most supreme devotee of Lord in chapter 12. He gave us the qualities, I think there were 35 qualities mentioned in verses 13 to 19. Para, supreme bhakta, para bhakta. So again, if you look at those qualities, they are same as a Gunatit, they are same as a Sthita Prajna. Okay, so that is the highest state that we can attain while we are living. So now in verse number 51, Krishna is going to now explain to us how does one attain Brahman? How does one reach Brahman? What are the qualities that we need for us to finally merge with Brahman? So he gives us the first quality here, one who is yuktaha. Yuktaha means endowed with, possessed with. What? Buddhaya, a buddhi, an intellect, which is vishuddhaya. So this word vishuddhaya comes from the root word shuddh. Shuddh means anything that is pure. Okay, we use the word shuddh. So your buddhi has been, shuddh means purified. But when you put the what you call prefix before the word shuddh, means vishuddhaya, means totally purified. So how do you identify or how do you classify a very pure buddhi, a very pure intellect? What is the definition of a pure buddhi? How would you define if that intellect is not only just pure but very pure? How would you define such a buddhi? You know, I was reading somewhere, gold, when gold is purified, is given a number. They call it the 4 nines. You know, 99.99%. That is called pure gold. But why do they call it pure gold? Because when they extract it from the ground, it contains impurities. What are the impurities? Silver, copper, and iron. So what they do, to make it pure, they remove the silver, the copper, and the iron, and then it becomes 99.99% pure. Now, what is it that you have to remove from your buddhi to make it pure? Doubts, ignorance, ego, etc. So, by the process of going through karma yoga and jnana yoga, you remove all these impurities from the intellect. So, thus it becomes buddhaya, vishuddhaya, a totally pure intellect. There's no more confusion. There's no more doubts. There are no more selfish desires. You're in control of your anger, your greed, etc. Okay. So such a buddhi, it sees everything very clearly. It makes very wise and ethical decisions. And it is fixed on the spiritual goal. So it is a very pure buddhi. So that's why when somebody asks me, what do you do when students come for Gita class? I say we brainwash them. You know the meaning of brainwashing? It has a negative aspect, but it also has a positive aspect. So what are we doing now with you? We are brainwashing you. What do we mean by brainwashing you? Huh? Removing all the impurities. Exactly. That is brainwashing. So when you go through the study of the scriptures, it removes your ignorance, removes your doubts, it gives you clarity in life. What is the direction your life should be taking? What is the purpose of my birth? What is the goal of human birth? All this is very clearly explained. So a sattvic intellect, because there can be rajasic and tamasic intellect also. So a sattvic intellect, in order to go through this purification process, must always consistently do vichara or inquiry. And I've sent you the notes today. There are 6 topics which we must constantly reflect. Vichara means to do inquiry on. And what are the 6 topics that the scriptures also constantly give us this knowledge? The first is called Jiva svarupam. Jiva svarupam means we have to question, what is my real nature? Who am I actually? You know what Ramakrishna used to go around saying, who am I? Who am I? You should constantly question, who am I? So Jiva svarupam means, what is my real nature? Second, Ishvara svarupam. What is the nature of that supreme consciousness, that supreme being? So that is the second topic. Third is, I must also understand jagat svarupam. What is this world all about? Why am I here in this world? What is the nature of this world? How should I interact with this world? And there are 3 things we always interact with in this world. I call it POS. P stands for people. We need to interact with people. O stands for objects, because there are possessions in our life. How do I deal with all these possessions? And S is situations. I have to deal with ups and downs in life and all that. Okay. So I have to also understand something about jagat svarupam. And this word jagat also is very interesting in Sanskrit. You see, every word in Sanskrit has got a root that forms these words. That is a very scientific language. See, in English, we say this is called world. If you ask the person, why do you call this world? Why don't you call it table, or do you call it monkey or something like that? There is no explanation. They just call it world. But this word jagat, which Sanskrit uses for the world, comes from 2 root words. Jayate gachanti iti jagat. What is jagat? What is world? It has got 2 components. Jayate gachanti. What does it mean? Jayate means everything that comes into existence, and everything that goes out of existence, that is jagat. So now, what is your body? What is your body? It is jagat, because it comes into existence and goes out of existence. What is a tree? It is jagat. What is a bird? Is jagat. Everything in this world is nothing but jagat, because it's constantly coming into existence and going out of existence. So jagat swarupam is to understand the temporary nature of this world. The 4th inquiry we must always do is bandham swarupam. Bandham means, what is it that is causing bondage? My bondage in this world. Why am I bound to this world? Why am I coming back again and again for subsequent births? Unless you want to come back, that's your business. But if you don't want to come back, then you should start questioning. Okay? Bandham swarupam. Because when I mention this, people say, but I want to come back. That's your choice. You want to come back, you come back. We cannot stop you. But those who don't want to keep getting stuck in this cycle of birth and death, then you start inquiring this bandham svarupam. And fifth is moksha svarupam. What really is moksha? What do you mean by moksha? So now we understood that there are two stages. One is jivan mukta, and then upon the fall of this body, when does this body fall? When does death occur?
Your karma is exhausted.
Which type of karmas? Prarabdha karmas. When your prarabdha karmas are exhausted, even you're a jivan mukta, you still have to exhaust the prarabdha karmas. So you are a jivan mukta, you're not affected by the world, you are just waiting for your prarabdha karmas to come to an end, the body falls. Then what happens? Then comes the second stage of moksha, which is called viddeha mukta, which means you don't have to come back for a subsequent birth. So that we have to understand clearly moksha. And the last topic we have to question is, or reflect on, is sadhana. What are the methods or the practice for me to break out of this bondage? How should I break out of this bondage? What is the sadhana required? So the intellect is very, very clear on this, all these subjects, the 6 subjects that we've gone through here. Okay. Then what is the second quality? He says is dritaya. Dritaya means what we call fortitude, commitment, dedication. Now, what is the difference between buddhi and dritaya? You must understand. Buddhi is intellect. You may have the knowledge, but if you don't have dhriti, then the knowledge won't be put into practice. So buddhi must always go with dhriti, that commitment, that dedication, that come what may, no matter what obstacle, I will go through it. I will go through the challenges because I want to reach the goal of moksha. So dhriti is very, very important in our life. That attitude, never to give up, to keep on overcoming any obstacle. So dritaya, fortitude, explain what we call a commitment. Okay, stay committed to a goal. Next quality he mentions here is niyamya, to be a master or to control atmanam. Again, atmanam in this context means mind. So to be a master of your mind. And this mastery over the mind, we must understand what is true mastery over the mind. Is it suppressing the mind? Why doesn't suppression work? Why doesn't suppression work? The same thoughts, the same desires will keep on coming again. So as you can go on suppressing, after a while it will explode back. So mastery of the mind means what then? What does mastery of the mind mean? If it doesn't mean suppression, what does it mean?
Substitute.
Sorry?
Substitute.
Substitute with what? Higher goals. Substitute with higher goals. Substitute with noble goals, noble ideas. And the only way you can do that is by reading the scriptures to understand what is the goal. Satsang, mixing around with the right group of people who share your same goals, share your same ideas. So satsang and what we call jnana yoga, study of the scriptures, are very, very important for you to bring this mind and always focus on higher goals in life. Okay? So it is not suppressing the mind, but channeling the mind to higher thoughts. Then we come to the next quality here. He mentions tyaktva. One must reject. Reject what? Shabdadin vishayan. So the word shabda here means sound. So he's telling you reject sound. Vishayan means sense objects. Okay, now let's try to understand this. When the scriptures mention one sense, actually what they mean is all the 5 senses. So when they mention sound, sound is experienced by your ear, right? Your eyes also will experience form. So each sense has got its own sense object. ear has the sense object of sound, eyes have the sense object of form, nose has the sense object of smell, tongue has the sense object of taste, and skin has the sense object of touch. So all five senses have their sense objects. Now, constantly through the scriptures, we are always warned about the dangers of the senses. The senses, it is said also in the Gita, in chapter 2 also, that the senses are so powerful that they can pull the mind away in the wrong direction. The senses are called indriyas. And another word or meaning of indriyas is tentacles. Because it is the nature of the senses to go outwards. Eyes like to see nice form, ears like to hear nice music, right? So they will drag your mind away. So Adi Sankaracharya also very beautifully in his writing says that every animal has got one weakness. For example, and that weakness causes the destruction of that animal. Example, a firefly has got weakness or what? Eye or sight, and it is attracted by bright flame. It rushes to the bright flame and gets destroyed. A fish has got weakness of smell. So when the fisherman drops the hook with the worm in the water, the fish picks up the smell, goes towards the worm, bites on it, gets caught in the hook and destroys himself. Poor human beings, we got weakness of how many senses? All our five senses, we got problem. Anytime any of our five senses can distract us. So that's why Shankara again says, he says, the senses are as deadly as the bite of a cobra. Or rather, he says, sorry, the senses are more deadlier than the bite of a cobra. Because a cobra has got to come to you, grab hold of your hand or whatever, sink his teeth into your what you call veins and inject the poison in. Whereas senses, you see something far away, and then it's not in contact with you. You see it far away, and then you walk away, and then what happens? Now the thing has entered into your mind, and then you start saying, "Should I have it?" You know, supposing you see a nice chocolate cake in the window, and you're diabetic, and then you keep on looking at it, and you say, "No, no, I won't eat." So you start walking away. Then where is the cake now? Now it's in your mind. Then you say, "Should I have it? Should I have it?" Then your mind says, "What?
Yes.
You should have it. You should have it." Then what happens? Then you have had it. So that's why he says the senses are more deadlier than the bite of a cobra. So here also, same thing. Same thing in Bhagavad Gita, they're saying rejecting sound object. Shabdadin Visaya means basically again disciplining your senses. And again, how do we discipline the senses? A beautiful allegory was given to us. First of all, we look at chapter 3, verse 42 to understand that. So let's go back to chapter 3, verse 42. Page number 78. Page 78. Chapter 3, verse 42. Senses are said to be great. He's saying senses are wonderful because they bring the experience of the world to us. If any of our one sense is not working, there is less experience for us into the world. The senses help us to read the scriptures, help us to hear bhajans, and so forth. So he says the senses are great, but greater than the sense is the mind, manas. Greater than the mind is the intellect. And greater than the intellect is the self or the consciousness. So what must control what? We have to understand. Senses have to be controlled by mind. Mind has to be controlled by intellect. Now, how do we do that? Then he gave us a beautiful allegory in chapter 2, verse 58. So we go back to chapter 2, verse 58. It's at page 51. Here is saying, he who draws away the senses from the objects of senses on every side. The example was given of a tortoise. When the tortoise senses danger, what does it do? It withdraws all its limbs back under the shell to protect itself. So now, what is that shell represent? The tortoise head, the four legs and the tail, what do they represent? So you have the five senses and the head represents the manas, the mind. Okay. We draw under the shell represents the exactly. The shell represents our intellect. Right? So understanding the danger that I should not. Now we see a group of people standing there gossiping. What do? We run there, isn't it? Because we want to hear the juicy gossip. And once you hear the juicy gossip, where is it settled down now? And then what do you have to do now? You have to go and spread it around somewhere. So what the scriptures are telling, guard your senses, be very alert where your senses are wandering, what your eyes are seeing, what your ears are hearing. So that's why I keep repeating again, satsang is so important. Why is satsang so important? Why is going to temple so important? Listening to spiritual lectures. Constantly we are fixing our five senses on spirituality, on divinity. We don't allow our senses to be strayed away. And that's why one thing I can never stand is when we are sitting in a temple, hearing bhajans, and your friend comes and sits next to you, and then he says, hey, how's business? Huh? Why do you want to talk about business when you're hearing bhajans and all that? There's so much of other time to talk about other things, but people like to invariably make conversation in a temple. I don't know why. Keep your focus, your senses on that divinity. So the tortoise is a very beautiful example to withdraw the senses from all these distractions also. Okay. And the opening verse of the Gita itself tells us, you see, the whole battlefield is our life. The chariot is our body. The Kauravas, the evil Kauravas, how many Kauravas are there? 100 Kauravas. Pandavas? 5. So what do you think the 5 Pandavas and the 100 Kauravas represent? 5 very easy. 5 senses. 100 Kauravas? All the distractions, all that, what we call impurities which are out there, which are attracting and distracting us. So there's already an allegory that will tell you, where you should be very careful about all this. So this person does not depend on contact of senses with the world for his happiness. Again, this person is always directing his senses to a higher form of sadhana, etc. See? So now, these are the qualities that he is giving us. And finally, he says the last quality here, Vyudasya Raga Dvesha. Vyudasya means to eliminate. Eliminate what? Raga Dvesha. Again, Raga is a strong attraction or attachment to what we like. Dvesha, dislike, hatred or aversion towards what we don't like. And again, we have to use our discrimination. That is the only thing we have, the only strong weapon we have is the power of our intellect. If we develop this intellect correctly, it will guide our mind, it will guide our senses, it will guide our life in the right direction. But many people, they don't use the power of the intellect to study the scriptures. So they don't have the knowledge. So knowledge is very important. Okay. These are the qualities, therefore, he's going through. And what does he say here? So the next verse also, he's going to carry on giving us some more qualities of this final journey, that how we are going to merge with this Brahman. Now, there is a very interesting, what we call, verse also from Bhaja Govindam. What was that verse? Trying to remember that verse. Let me try to remember that. Okay, let's go to 52. 52 now is giving us some more qualities of what we should practice in order to reach that goal. So the first quality he gives here is Vivikta Sevi. Vivikta sevi means resorting to solitude. Again, we must be very careful when the scriptures give us this. Don't take the literal meaning. Doesn't mean that you have to run away to a cave or ashram to go and sit down and pray and all and chant and meditate and all that. Because this advice is given to who? Who's standing in front of Krishna? Arjuna. Arjuna is a family man, right? Householder. So what does resorting to solitude mean? What does resorting to solitude mean? Right? Resorting to solitude basically means always finding time to keep aside some time to spend time in quietude and reflection. So every day, daily, set aside some time, whether you want to read the scripture, whether you want to write something that has come to your mind, something spiritual, whether you want to read a book that tells you something about spirituality, or just sitting down and meditating, find some time for quietude and solitude. So Vivikta Sevi means resorting to solitude and also visiting holy places. The more and more we go to holy places, they are charged, very positively charged also. So they also bring a lot of positive vibrations to us also, right? So we must not take the literal meaning and just think that go away to a cave or a forest and sit down and meditate, okay? And the idea is to have some quality time. Nowadays, they use the new word, what they call, I want me time. I want quality time. 5,000 years ago, Krishna already told us this. That is Vivikta Sevi. Next is a very important quality which is very difficult to follow in Malaysia, especially because we have 24-hour eateries here. So, Lagvasi, eat sparingly. Watch your diet, watch what you eat. Don't overeat, don't undereat also. That also Krishna told us in chapter 6. When you sit down for meditation, you don't overeat, and at the same time, you don't have to starve yourself also. So eat according to what your body capacity is. Okay, and that's why those days sannyasis used to go around begging from house to house with their palms. The reason is that whatever you consume should be only within that the two palms. So who had the biggest advantage? Those sannyasis who had bigger hands, right? They get more food. But that's how you control that limit. And nowadays also they say when you eat rice, you take that into one, what you call that, rice bowl, and that is what you should consume. Okay. So lagvasi means basically to control your diet, not overeat, not undereat also. Yatha. Yatha means to control three things again. Again, very important to discipline these three equipments of our mind. Now, this was already elaborately discussed in chapter 17. So, what are the three things? Vak. Vak means speech. And this was explained to us in chapter 17. What is the austerity of speech? So, when you should speak, when you should not speak, speak nice words, what you call, speak with compassion, with love, okay? Don't use violent words, foul words, etc. That is austerity of speech. Vak. Controlling kaya, the body, meaning keeping the body clean, wearing clean clothes, keeping your environment clean, etc. Okay, so that is also very important. Cleanliness also is very important. Third is manasa, mind. That means we should be very careful. What are the thoughts being generated in our mind? Violent thoughts, angry thoughts, thoughts of jealousy or trying to hurt somebody. So all these thoughts which are circulating in our mind, we have to be very careful. They are like poison to the mind also. So the three equipments, vak, kaya, and manasa also have got to be controlled. So in Sanskrit, there's a beautiful saying. I'll just translate it into English. It says this. It's a popular saying in Sanskrit. It says, the wife is wicked. Now I know many ladies here, so please give me some time to explain. Don't jump on me. If the wife is wicked, friends are cheats, servants are most disobedient, and house is infested with serpents. Now, supposing you're staying in such a house, what would you do? Of course, this verse has been composed by a man. So if it's composed by a woman, what do? You just change it. You put it, the husband is wicked, friends are cheats, servants are disobedient, and house is infested with serpents. Okay. So now, what does this word house? Actually, it's all an analogy. Okay. It's not directly saying that, but it's an analogy trying to explain to us. What does a house mean actually? Huh? The body. The house means a body, right? So the house is the body. What is the wife or the husband? What does the wife or the husband represent in this body? The mind, because you are wedded to the husband or wife. So you are wedded to your mind also. Okay. And who are our friends? The emotions. Okay, the emotions are our friends because they give rise to different desires. So it depends on what type of friends you have, good friends or bad friends also. Okay, so they give rise to a lot of desires. And servants are our sense organs because if they don't serve us, they become our enemy also. So now, and crowning all this, all the problems already you have, serpent is what? What does a serpent represent? The ego, because it's ready to strike you anytime. Okay. So now they're trying to make us understand this is the body that you have actually. You have to deal with your mind, you have to deal with outside influence, the friends, you have to deal with your ego. All these are the problems you have to deal with. So it's not that we have to run away from the house, but we have to learn how to deal with all these issues. So these are the qualities, and he gives a few more here. He says, Dhyana Yoga Paranityam. One should engage. Dhyana Yoga signifies meditation, the path of meditation. Now, this was extensively discussed in chapter 6. Chapter 6 itself is called Dhyana Yoga. The whole process of meditation was explained by Krishna in chapter 6. Okay, so it's going back again to this. But one more word he adds in here. Dhyana Yoga Paranityam, which means don't take meditation as a part-time hobby. Nitya means to practice it daily. How long you should practice it depends on you. Okay, whether you do for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it depends on you. How much you can, what we call, control that restless mind also. Okay, but meditation is definitely prescribed as one of the sadhanas. So together with karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, there is dhyana yoga also. Okay, the 4 practices also. Okay, and then finally he gives us the last quality here, samupashtrita, one who has taken shelter or refuge in vairagyam, dispassion or detachment. So many people again wrongly interpret detachment as giving up everything. Just give up everything. But our religion always deals with the attitude of the mind. Physically, you can give up, but mentally, you are still attached to it. So, detachment is not that you should not possess anything. Very clearly, we should understand. Detachment is not that you should not possess anything, but detachment means that nothing should possess you. Okay, that means if you have it, you're okay with it. You lose it, you're also okay with it. It doesn't disturb you. You're not at all affected by the objects and the people, etc. Whatever comes and goes, you're able to accept arrival and departure. That is called through vairagya or through detachment also. So, we have time. 5:30. Okay, we have time to take another verse also. I'm just trying to find verse from Anisankaracharya. Okay, so the verse I was telling you about Adi Sankaracharya earlier, here also affects the actions that you do that should not affect you. So this verse in Bhaja Govindam, Yoga Ratova, Bhoga Ratova, Sangha Ratova, Sangha Vihina, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chitam Nandati Nandati Nandat Eva. Now, what it means is this. In our life, sometimes yoga rathoa means we are on the path of spirituality. We are doing spiritual things. We are going for spiritual talks. We are going to temples. We are going on pilgrimage. So, yoga rathoa. Sometimes bhoga rathoa, you are engaged in worldly things. You are attending a party, a birthday party, or going out for dinner. So sometimes you're on the spiritual side. Sometimes you're doing the worldly things. Yoga rathoa, bhoga rathoa. Sangha rathoa, sometimes you find yourselves in the company of people. Or sometimes sangha vihina, sometimes you're alone by yourself. So what Shankara is saying, doesn't matter what you're doing. Physically, whatever you're doing is okay, you carry on. But what is more important? Yasya, the one who, he used the word chittam. Chittam here means the mind. Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam. One whose mind is Ramate, is forever fixed in Brahman, the higher consciousness. So it doesn't matter externally where you are. The point is, where is your mind fixed on? Whether whatever you're doing, even see, how do we define prayer? We come to temple and do like this. Is that prayer?
No.
So how do you define true prayer?
Yeah.
Where is your mind, right? So it says, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam, one whose Chittam, mind, is constantly fixed on Brahman, the higher consciousness. What is the nature of that person? Nandati, at peace. Nandati, at peace. Nandat eva, verily at peace. He is forever at peace. So the external environment should never ever affect us. We have to be very careful where our mind is. As long as our mind is fixed on that higher consciousness, we are able to then keep that mind steady and pure. So this is what Adi Shankaracharya wrote. So we'll come back the following week, next week, and take up this verse. Now, just one more thing I would like to say is that we are organizing a half-day Geeta seminar in April. We're sending flyers out, but more important is this seminar is more targeted towards those people who have very little or no knowledge of Gita, and especially youngsters, the young working adults. So if you can help us to spread the word around, to tell them about this seminar, which is going to be held in Gita Ashram. It's a half-day seminar. There's a registration fee of 50 ringgit that covers breakfast and lunch also. Okay, and if you're interested to find out more, please contact Brother Kumara. Okay, so children, no, I mean it's targeted more towards the adults. Yeah, and with the prayer. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Thank you.